Good morning and welcome once again to our daily Bible study. This is day 114. We are at the moment looking at the divided kingdom, the period between Elijah and the fall of Jerusalem. And today we are coming to the end of the life of Queen Jezebel. I'm going to show you the second book of Kings, chapter 9, verses 30 to 37. And I'm going to precede that with just a little bit of scene setting for you. 2 Kings 9, 30 to 37. At the end of a series of armed conflicts between Israel, Judah and their neighbours, for a short time Ahaziah was to rule in Judah, and Elisha anointed Jehu as Israel's ruler. Jehu quickly had King Ahab's successor killed, along with other family members. Jehu's troops defeated and killed Ahaziah in battle. Now at last it was to be Ahab's wife Jezebel's turn. Jehu now arrived at Jezreel. The news about what had happened had reached Jezebel. She put on her makeup and did her hair, and then she stood in a window of the palace, watching towards the gate on the street below. As Jehu came in through the gate, she yelled at him, "You are just like Zimri, that assassin. What have you come here for?" Jehu looked up at her and shouted back, "Is there anyone in there on my side?" And a couple of eunuchs who worked there poked their heads out of a window. "Out of the window with her," he said, and they threw her down. Her blood spattered the wall and the horses. Jehu drove his horses and chariot over her body and entered the palace to eat and drink. Once that was over, he said at last, "You'd better take that accursed woman's body and bury it. She was, after all, the daughter of a king." But those who went out to do that only found her skull and the bones of her hands and feet. Back inside, they told Jehu, and he said, Yahweh told Elijah from Tishbe that this would happen. Elijah said, dogs will eat Jezebel in Jezreel. She will end up as dog's excrement on the field there. Nobody will recognize her remains. This was the ignominious way the palace coup was to end. The coup that removed the dynasty of unpopular Ahab and Jezebel from Israel's throne. We can guess that Jehu, an army officer, took power with the support of his troops, and maybe even with the support of the vast majority of Israel's population. Earlier in the chapter, we see how secretly and speedily he had to move to achieve his goal. By now, the servants inside the palace will of course have been in no doubt which way the wind was blowing, and may have been all too happy to help the new inheritor of power to take control. Even the kitchen staff were ready with food and drink for their new bosses. In the rest of the chapter and what follows, the bloodbath of Ahab's family and supporters, and the stealthy trapping and extermination of the pagan clergy and prophets, which follows, are of course completely distasteful to us. Sadly, the rest of Jehu's 28-year reign was to be one of economic and military decline. Former alliances failed, and he ended up having to pay tribute to the rising power of Assyria, according to an inscription discovered by archaeology. This is the Black Obelisk of Shalmaneser III. He also was said, as we see in chapter 10, verses 32 to 36, he also was said to have lost access to the trade routes east of the Jordan. So, sadly, the end of a wicked state of affairs around 814 BC was not followed by great success, but sadly by more hardship. The following 2 or 3 generations saw the prophets Amos and Hosea working in Israel, whilst in Judah to the south, Isaiah and Micah fulfilled the same role, calling people back to God. Israel, the northern kingdom, was to fall first to the Assyrians in 722 BC. Prophets had witnessed the decline of people's faith and resolve, and looking back on this, the editors of these ancient texts could of course draw the conclusion that they had rightly foreseen the consequences. Tomorrow, we look at the fall of Israel, the northern kingdom, to the Assyrian Empire, which was of course inevitable. I'll see you tomorrow.